Hey gaming fans, so today I'm going to be doing a Lightsworn deck profile. This one, it's still a work in progress, obviously. Every deck I do is always going to be a work in progress. I think that's with anybody. And you know, there's still some newer cards that I need to add to this. But let's get started. And you know, the first one I want to show is one copy of Raikou. This card, I used to do like 3 ofs all the time. But I don't know if in today's game, a lot of times you wonder how often you're going to get a flip effect off. And with Lightsworns, you pretty much know when your opponent sets a monster, it's Raikou. So they're prepared for it. So I decided to keep one in here just to have that extra Lightsworn in the graveyard for Judgement Dragon. Because ultimately that's what you want to do. You want to get Judgement Dragon off almost every single time. So I left him at 1. I don't know. Maybe I'll bump him up to 2. Now this is a 40 card deck so far. Might be 41 if I can get my hands on another card, but I'll talk about that afterwards. So the next one is 2 Minerva. She's great because she's a tuner, and whenever she's milled to the grave, sent from the deck to the graveyard, you send 1 card from the top of your deck to the graveyard. Actually, also if she's sent from your hand. So if you use her as a, to pay for a cost, and she's your main tuner to pull out your Michael the Arch Lightsworn. So we'll talk about that after. She's not very powerful, and she does have a main effect that when she's summoned, you can add a Light Dragon from your deck to your hand. But I don't play any dragons that would really fit. I mean, you'd have to have a ton of Lightsworns in there, so you never really use her first effect. The next one is, and I think I've always done this, as long as it was legal. 3 of the Lumina Lightsworn Summoner. I think one of the best Lightsworns out there. This one, at the end of your turn, it mills 3 cards to the graveyard. You could discard a card, special summon a Lightsworn from the graveyard. So as long as you have 1 Lightsworn in your graveyard, you could even bring back the card you discard. Like if it's I don't know, like a wolf. Oops, sorry. If it's like a wolf or whatever you have in your hand, or whatever's in the graveyard, you could even bring back Minerva if you want to do a if you want to do an XC summon, or if you want to do a synchro summon, depending on what you keep in your extra deck. But I definitely see these being at 3, and just the fact that also your turn 1 you could play it, and 3 cards at the end of your turn is really good, because that's what you're doing in Lightsworn. You're sending them to the graveyard. 1 copy of Oricus. The names on these guys are weird. Oricus, Lightsworn Druid. This is an okay one. It's good for certain situations. Again, I just want to have another Lightsworn, because you need, to summon Judgement Dragon, you need 4 of different names, right? So, this is just a good one to have. You got to be careful with him, because as long as he's on the field, Lightsworn cards cannot be targeted by spells, traps, or effects. So that means Lightsworn cards in the graveyard, Lightsworn cards on the field. So you got to be careful that you don't try and target your own Lightsworn card with things like Honest or anything like that. So, I mean, he's just okay. And he does mill 2 cards off the top of the deck. 1 Aaron, Lightsworn Monk. Again, I don't know. This is okay. What she pretty much does is she attacks a defense position monster. She returns it to the deck before damage calculation. So really gets rid of those unwanted blockers and stuff like that. I don't know if I would ever want to go more than 1. Playing Book of Moons and stuff can really help. But you got to be wary about today with Link monsters, because they never go in defense mode. So depending on the metagame. Also, she does mill 3 cards. So she's an okay card, even if you start off going first. 2 Lilas. Yeah, this one I always played around with 2 or 3 copies of her. She mills 3 cards at the end of turn, and when she's face up on the field, you could turn her to defense mode and destroy 1 spell or trap card. So really good effect. Always, you can grab her from the grave with Lumina, and pretty decent Lightsworn, 1700 body. Next one is Raiden. I play 2 Raidens. Raiden's is, I think, one of the better ones as well. He's 1700. He's also a tuner, so you can also tune into your Michael. if you have the appropriate levels to do so. And you know, you can do that with Lumina, I believe. You can, where is she? Lumina. So you can, if you have Lumina, you could discard special summon Michael, and then you can go into your Raiden, then you can go into your Michael. But yeah, Raiden's good. You could send 2 cards when you summon him. You could send 2 cards, and then at the end of your turn, you can send another 2 cards. And when he sends 2 cards from his first effect, if any one of those is a Lightsworn, he gets bumped up to 1900 attack. Right now, he's a 1700 body. So, you know, I think he's a pretty good card. I'm only playing 2. Sometimes I might bump him up to 3. Another one, Jane, Lightsworn Paladin. Nothing really fancy about this guy. He can get pretty big when he attacks. He's 18, but he gets an additional 300 when he attacks during a damage step. So he becomes like 21. So he can get rid of some, you know, pretty strong bodies on the field. And then at the end of turn, it's he mills 2 cards. Again, I only keep 1 because, you know, he's just another Lightsworn to keep in your deck. The next one, Gareth, Lightsworn Warrior. He's okay. He's 1850. He's kind of situational. You have to have him on the field and another Lightsworn. And so whenever a Lightsworn monster mills a card, his effect kicks in. He'll mill 2 cards. And if one of those is a Lightsworn, you draw a card. So it's actually pretty good. I mean, it's okay at 1. I don't know if I'd want to play more than 1. Unless you're, you know, you really want to try and get his effect off all the time. Now this is another one that's situational because I'm playing a 40 card deck, and I remember when Lightsworns first came out, there was a huge debate on how many wolf Lightsworn beasts you would play. I just like him because, yes, you can draw into him, and that's a problem, unless you have Solar Recharge, or you could just use him for Lumina to discard him. But you just want to get this effect off all the time, and his effect is whenever he's sent to the graveyard from, you know, an effect, you special summon him. And he's a 2100 Beast Warrior body. Really good. I mean, at the end of your turn, your Lila or Lumina or whatever can mill him, then he enters the field for free, essentially. So I always like that. I mean, he's situational, but I think the payoff is better than, you know, not playing him at all or playing him at 2 or 1. And of course, the star of the deck, the MVP, 3 Judgement Dragons. Again, I remember when this was, you know, a topic of conversation. Should you play 2? Should you play 1? Should you play all 3? And, you know, depending on the deck size, because drawing them early, yes, you can brick. You can brick your hand. You can draw 3 Judgement Dragons in your opening hand. You're pretty much going to lose. Especially if you have a hand like this. You're going to lose. And that'll happen, right? It'll happen. But, you know, it might not, and in a lot of cases it won't. You might get 2. Also, you never know with the rest of your cards in your hand how quickly you're going to get those 4 Lightsworns in the graveyard, which will make them live, and then all of a sudden you can drop them all in 1 turn. So essentially what this guy does is when he's on the field, you can well, he can only be summoned if you have 4 different Lightsworns with different names in your graveyard. That's all it takes. Then you just summon him to the field. Then you could pay 1,000 life points to destroy all other cards on the field. So basically, he's the only one left on the field. Even your own cards are gone. And then if you have the other 2 in your hand, why not, right? Have at it. Go for game. Depending on what your opponent's playing, of course. If they have like Swift Attacking Scarecrow or something like that, or Battle Fader, then yeah, you're not going to win that turn. But or some other thing in the graveyard that would stop it. Also, at the end of turn, he does mill 4 cards off your deck. So you got to be careful when you have too many Lightsworns on the field that you're not going to mill yourself to death. And that was a strategy that people would use to try and win against Lightsworn, was to leave them there and block every turn and then hope they mill themselves out. Which is why you might want to also play more than 40 cards. Overall, though, this is your star player. 3,000 attack points. 1 or 2 of these, you usually win the game. So that's it for the Lightsworns. There's quite a bit of Lightsworns, as you can see. Most of the deck is Lightsworn. So the rest of the monster lineup that I got is 3 Honest. Again, I don't know if I want to go with 3 or not. You do mill them periodically, but they're always great to have in your hand. Any Lightsworn on the field, and they're going to survive a battle phase. Of course, he's not going to do anything if they were able to you know, Dark Hole or something like that. And in a pinch, you could set him. He's got 1900 defense. And if you're not familiar with what Honest does, is if you have a face-up attack light monster and your opponent attacks, you can discard Honest, and this monster will gain the attack that the attacking monster has. And then you get, you pretty much will always kill your attacking creature. So that's, you know, I think Honest is, like, if you're not going to play 3, you at least play 2. And just another card that I just always like to play in Lightsworn. This guy's name is oh Jesus, what is Pero Cerebus something, I don't know. Point is, he's a 0 attack beast, so you don't want to draw him really. His effect is if you take damage by battle or an opponent's card effect while this card is in the graveyard, you could banish this card from the graveyard, then target one card on the field and destroy it. It's hard to read. Yeah, there you go. Pero Serperius. It's a weird name, but it's a beast. You know, it's just another one of those cards you just want to mill into the graveyard, and it'll make your opponent think twice about attacking. Also, after you've milled a ton of cards, your opponent might forget that he's in there. So you might forget he's in there. So you always want to, like, check your graveyard. Okay, let's go on to the spell and traps. So the obvious 3 charge of the light brigades. You need them. This searches out any Lightsworn card, and it mills the top 3 cards of your deck. So this is like the best spell card out there for an archetype, I think. You know, it does 2 things really well that the archetype needs: searching and milling. So it really plays into the archetype. 3 solar recharge. Again, another one that's like designed for the archetype. You discard a Lightsworn monster, so that could be your wolf or whatever you don't need. Draw 2 cards, and then send the top 2 cards from your deck to the graveyard. Probably one of the best draw cards for an archetype out there. It really pulls off what it needs to do, and it's a godsend if you get that. I'm playing around with 2 monster reincarnation. My thought is, if I mill Judgement Dragon, if I mill Honest, if I mill something I need, I can just get it back, and I can discard whatever I don't need in my hand. Perhaps it might be one of those Pero guys, or you know, if he's in my hand, I could discard him with monster reincarnation, and it just adds the monster back to my hand. Whether I'm going to keep that at 2 or not, I don't know. This is something I'm still playing around with, so it's always good to know that you got that in your hand, so if you mill something you need, you can bring it back. 1 Book of Moon. This is at 3 now, so I don't know if I'm going to add more or less. I kind of built this deck before the ban list change, so yeah, you know, again, if I take out one of these, maybe I'll put in another Book of Moon. It's just a good defense card. Foolish Burial, perfect card for this deck. Puts that 1 Lightsworn you need into the graveyard, or for Judgement Dragon, or you can actually send Wolf to the graveyard if you need a 2400 or 2100 beat stick on the field, or you just need something to synchro. And a typical Monster Reborn, because why not? Every deck's going to play Monster Reborn. And then the traps. Right now I just got 1 Solemn Judgment, just for space purposes. Good card, stop all, whatever it wants. You know, you could prevent things from happening, and then you can get your Judgement Dragon out. This is an odd one too, Skill Prisoner. So this one, you target 1 card you control that this turn, when any monster effect resolves that targeted that card at activation, negate that effect. So it kind of saves you from monster effects. But the reason why I play this one too is during either player's turn except the turn it was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard and then target 1 card you control. When any monster effect resolves that targeted that card, you can negate the effect. So it works in the graveyard, so if it gets milled, you can still use it. So it's pretty cool. And you know, any card that lets you use its effect twice is good. Same with this, Breakthrough Skills. I play 2 of them. Another one of those, just negate a monster effect. You could set it, activate it, and then while it's in the graveyard, I believe it's during your opponent's turn, target 1 face-up effect monster your opponent controls. Negate the effects of that opponent's monster while it's face-up on the field until the end of turn. During the turn, except this turn is sent to the graveyard, you could banish this card from your graveyard. Then target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, negate it. So it's a really good card. I mean, if it gets milled, it gets milled. If it doesn't, you set it and you can use it. So another use twice. Now that's the 40 cards. I did have 1 empty slot ready. for another card that I don't have yet, and that's Judgment, what is it, Lightsworn Judgment. I don't have that card yet. I'm probably just going to order it online or something. It's just, I don't think it's expensive, but it's a trap. Essentially what happens is you can set it and then activate it, and it goes on top of your deck, and whenever it's milled by a Lightsworn monster, you search your deck for Judgement Dragon and add it to your hand. So eventually I'll get that card, and it will be in this deck. It's, you know, just, I'm thinking just one would be enough. I don't think you'd want to draw it too often, because it'd be like drawing your Judgement Dragons too often. And of course, for the extra deck, I don't really have a full extra deck put together, but the only one that I would definitely have in there is the Michael, the Arc Lightsworn, which came in the Lightsworn structure deck. So it's the one tuner, one or more non-tuner light monsters, so pretty much every monster in this deck is light, except for the Pero. Once per turn, you can pay 1,000 life points, target one card on the field, banish that target. When this card is destroyed, you could target any number of other Lightsworn monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them into your deck, and if you do, gain 300 life points for each returned card, so you can get some life points back. You shuffle some monsters back, and during the end phase, you send 3 cards from your deck to the graveyard. So, you know, pretty cool card. I think it fits with the Lightsworn theme. The ability to banish is awesome. It's kind of like a mini Judgment Dragon in a sense. Very easy to pull off with Lumina and Raiden and stuff like that. So definitely you got to have at least 1 or 2 in your deck, in your side deck, or extra deck I should say. But yeah, that's what I got so far for my Lightsworn deck. You know, obviously this is a work in progress. I got to get that extra missing card. And I think what I would do is, if I do get that card, I'm going to make it as a 41 card deck. I'm not going to make, you know, take out a card and put it in there. I'm going to keep this deck, I'm going to make this deck 41 cards, just so it's a little bit bigger. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the Lightsworn deck that I'm playing with. Hopefully I can get some extra cards. I know there's a Link monster that's out there as well. I don't have it. So that'll definitely be something I will look into. And yeah, I'm always improving these decks, and you know, it's always good to hear some feedback. Let me know in the comments down below what you think and what you would take out and what you would add in. It's always fun to hear your point of view. And hope you liked the video. Hope you subscribe. Talk to you later.